Hello and welcome to another video in our series on REDmod, the new modding tools by CDPR. I'm Moritz, and in today's video I'm going to talk about script modding. Just to recap, what is REDmod? REDmod is two things. It's on the one hand a tool for mod authors to create mods, for example script mods, which will be the topic of today's video. And on the other hand, it's a downloadable DLC for players to use these mods. And this I covered in the first video. What I want to do now quickly is answer three questions that I think have been unclear from the last video. So the first question I want to just briefly recap is the difference between the GOG and the Steam and Epic platforms when it comes to REDmods. You have to download the REDmod DLC. I covered this in the first video, but to actually play the game with REDmods, you need to, in GOG, go to Manage Installation, Configure, and then in the Features tab, you will see a little checkbox that says Enable Mods. You just tick that, click OK, and play the game. And that's all. You don't need any external tools for that. A little window will pop up and display a little progress of how your REDmods are compiled, but after that's done, you can just play the game normally. In Steam, it's a little bit different. In Steam, you don't have this configure bar in the client or in the client itself. But what you actually have is the pre-launcher that will open when you play the game. And I'm just gonna showcase that in a screenshot. The pre-launcher looks like this. And if you have any REDmods installed, there will be this cogwheel and another checkbox or another toggle button where you can enable your mods, and then you click play. And that's all. Again, you don't need any external software or anything. But because that was sometimes unclear, this enable mods button will only appear if you actually have any REDmods installed. And just to recap that again, REDmods are mods that go into the Cyberpunk 2077 folder, mods, and then you will have mods here. But there is nothing here now because we're going to create a mod, but this is how you know if a certain mod is a REDmod or not. The second question I want to cover is the difference between REDmods and normal mods. And you've just seen that REDmods always go into the mods folder in Cyberpunk 2077. And on the other hand, old archive mods, for example, went into this folder here, archive PC mod. And then you might have, then you can have different legacy archive mods here. Both of them are supported by the engine, both of them work. It's just two different systems. And you you don't actually have to be aware of that, but just for it to be clear, you don't have to port older mods to REDmod, or you don't have to move REDmod mods from the new folder to the old folder. These are two separate systems and they work. Both of them are supported. I just want to make that clear. And the third question I want to talk about is if something went wrong during a REDmod deploy or during a REDmod launch, you can simply reset everything by going into the R6 folder, cache, modded, and delete everything in here. I'm just going to do this because we're going to make a new mod anyway, so this is as good an opportunity as any. But if you do that, REDmod will recompile all your mods again, and the little window will pop up when you play the game. So you basically reset everything that REDmod does. As an explanation, REDmod creates new scripts and tweak files in this modded folder, and the game will load these instead of the normal ones. That's a little bit technical, but from the user's perspective, you can just delete everything what's inside the modded folder and start anew. That will resolve most problems. All right, so let's create our first script mod with REDmod. And just to recap, scripts are a programming language where most of the game's logic is located. For example, damage calculations are done in scripts. Or, and this is what we're going to do today, for example, the respec costs for perks and for attributes is located in scripts as well. There's two different systems. You have the C++ engine code that we can't really touch as modders, and then you have the scripts, which actually come with REDmod. So if you downloaded the DLC, you can go into your tools folder, REDmod, and then you will see a folder called scripts there. And this scripts folder contains all the game's scripts, and we're going to have a look at that right now. So the easiest way for me always is to use Visual Studio Code and open a new window and just drag and drop the scripts folder into this window. And then you will have all the files here. There's a lot of files and you can look through them and you can change all of them if you want. But what we're going to do is in this short example mod, we're going to make respecking your perks free. Currently it costs something and we're going to check this out as well. So you can check out or you just go to the search function and you can search get total respec cost. I already know this, but in any case, this is the function that the game uses to calculate the costs for you to respec your perk points. So if you want to look at the file, we have this function get total respec costs. It returns an integer, a number, and it has three variables, the cost, base price, and single perk price. Both are also integers. And it's a very short function, but it basically first gives a value to this base price base price variable. And what it does, it gets a constant value basically from the tweak-db. I'm going to cover this in the next video, but from this static database of values. And then it gets the single perk price. This is also a static value in the tweak-db. And then it calculates the cost. And it does that by adding to the base price the single perk price and multiply that by all the spent points on perks. And then it returns this cost. So if we want to modify this function, we can do this here. What we're going to do is just set this to 0, and this will be the first mod. Basically makes respecking free. And to do this, we are going to make a new mod. So we go back to the Cyberpunk main folder, mods. This is the REDmod directory because this is done with REDmod. And we're just going to make a new mod. I'm just going to call it mod respec free. And in that mod, we need a new info.json file. Info.json. I want to change this. Yes. And what this does is gives a name and a version to the mod. We need this for REDmod to actually know it's a mod. So I'm just going to drag this into Visual Studio Code and give the mod a name. We're going to call it, doesn't really matter, respec, and we're going to give it a version as well. And this will be version 1.0 or something. And you save that, and that's all that's needed for this info.json. You can also add descriptions and other stuff, and I'll give you a link to the documentation for that in the description below. But for now, we want to actually now modify this method in our new mod. So what we're going to do is create a new folder called scripts. And then we need to copy this file from the game scripts. So I'm going to open this in my Explorer. and copy this file, copy. But we cannot just paste it here. We actually have to respect the relative path. So if you look here, you have the scripts folder here, and you have the scripts folder in a mod. So we're gonna need 2 more folders in my mod, namely one called Cyberpunk, and another one called Systems. And then we can paste the game script file into the mod. Just make sure you have the correct folder setup here. Your mod folder, a scripts folder, and then the relative path. It's Cyberpunk and Systems here, and it's Cyberpunk and Systems here, and inside that, the script file. So once we copied the file from the game files to my mod, I can just open it also in Visual Studio Code. And I'm gonna find the function I want to change. Okay, here it is, get total respec cost. And what we want to do in this mod is just return 0 as our respec cost, because we want to make it free. So, and I think this is all we need. We can now check if that worked by going into GOG, and then we can play the game, and it should open a little window that takes a little while, that describes the progress of my mod deployment. So this is REDmod doing its thing. It deploys the mod we just created and creates a compiled script blob. And yes, that worked, and the game is launching. So now that we created our first mod, let's just go over a couple of interesting things. Basically, so script mods always work like this. You copy the file from the game scripts into your mod, and then you can modify it or couple multiple files. One interesting thing to note is conflicts. Currently, script modding is done on a per file basis. That means if 2 mods modify the same file, there will be a conflict. And we can just check that real quick by copy and pasting just that. And I'm just also gonna change the name here. And so let's see what happens when we try to launch the game now. Again, wait for the script compilation window. Oh, here it is. Oh, yes. And right in the beginning, it says conflict in script mods detected. We can now open the log as well and see a little more verbose error here, saying that there is a conflicting file. For those of you who modded Witcher 3, you might notice that this is the same problem as in Witcher 3, which also had conflicts on a per file basis. Basically, it's up to the user to merge conflicting mods. So there's not much you can do from the REDmod perspective. If 2 mods modify the same files, then there will be a conflict in the end, and it's up to the user to resolve this conflict. However, I want to showcase another method of modifying scripts and basically achieving the same result, but with a different modding tool. And it's a community modding tool. And I want to quickly shout out Redscript, which is also available on the Nexus. It's made by members of the Cyberpunk modding community, Jackie. And you can check the source code on GitHub as well. Basically, it's just another way of modifying the scripts in the game through a different method. And what Redscript allows, in contrast to REDmod, is that it allows modifying on a function level and not on a file level. And I'm going to showcase this now real quick at the end of the video. And we're going to make the same mod that we just did with REDmod in Redscript. You can also click on the source code on GitHub and check out the wiki there with a lot of examples. So to make a Redscript mod, you go to Cyberpunk 2077 base game folder, R6, and go to the folder scripts. I have a couple of mods installed here, but you can just create a new text file here. Actually, I'm gonna make a folder just to be a little bit more organized. I'm gonna call it respec Redscript. And we need to create a new text document. The name doesn't really matter. I'm just going to call it free respec again and give it the extension reds. Yes, I want to change that as well. And I can open that in Visual Studio Code. And now we actually need the old script again. So let me just go to, well, since we're modifying the same script source, we just modifying on a function, not on a file level. We now need to look up the function again. So to go through this again, go to my REDmod mod and open real quick this file. And what we're going to do is we are going to change the get total respec cost function. So what we're doing in the Redscript mod is I'm just going to copy paste the function name and I'm going to qualify it correctly. It's a public final const function, and it returns an integer, as we have seen. Just going to double check that. Public const function, and it returns an integer. Just make sure you use the correct syntax. You can look it up on the Redscript wiki. And what you're going to do with this function is we are going to replace the method, and we are going to replacing it in its class. So need to scroll up and find the class player development data and paste this here. And what we then just do is the same as we did in our mod. We return 0. And that's all. So these are the two methods you can use for modifying scripts. And I'm just going to recap the pros and cons for each again. I'm going to put them side by side. So on the right-hand side, let's just do that again. On the right-hand side, we have the REDmod method of replacing script files in mods. And to do that, we looked up the source in the REDmod DLC scripts folder. And then we copied the file from the REDmod source to my mod and changed the method here. We returned 0, always return 0 for the respec cost. And then we just need to hit play and REDmod will compile the scripts, and then you can play the game with the modified, with your modified logic. The negatives for this method is conflicts. If two mods modify the same files, then you won't be able to play the game. You need to resolve the conflict manually. It always needs resolving because if two mods modify the same things, basically, you need to pick and choose which one you want. On the other hand, we have the community Redscript modding tool, which will also allows you to modify the game scripts, the same thing. And we recreated this mod just now. We also changed the total respec cost. We replaced the method with a new one that always returns 0. The big pro here on that side is that this is much more fine-grained. You don't need to copy paste the whole file and have potential conflicts with other mods that change the whole file, but you will only have potential conflicts if two mods change the same method. So these are basically the two methods, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to the community tools as well, because they're awesome. And this will be it for this video. Thank you very much.